It has been a while since I last made a properly recorded a video. So hello again, YouTube. I don't really have a reason for making this. I just kind of wanted to, and I know that most people probably don't know me or what this video is about. So hi, I made a fan song for Epic the Musical, which is released on no, not exactly released. That would be kind of misinformation. I uploaded a video of the fan song, which you can check out here, and I will also leave the link to that video down in the description as well. And so, yeah, it would really help you and me a lot with context and all that kind of stuff if you would check it out, because it didn't do very well. But it's fine. I made that fan song just because I wanted to. So, it's fine. And I'm proud of how it came out. So, yeah, for that same reason, I also just kind of wanted to make this video, just to sort of explain myself. I did make like half of this live on stream, so for those of you who were there, thank you, and you might already have some idea, but regardless, yeah, I just wanted to make this video to talk about the song itself, the sort of just breaking down everything, my instrument choices, lyric choices, reference choices, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I hope that this will be as fun for you guys as it will be for me. So yeah, first of all, ta-da! This is basically the original idea I had. So you can see the sort of scenario I had in mind, the references I thought about using, and also the original lyrics. Because as of recording this video, I just realized that I never actually updated this, because I have made changes in the final song as well. But yeah, I'm realizing for the first time that I did not update those changes into this document here. So, anyway, the idea is very, very simple. For those of you who have listened to or watched Epic the Musical, you will be familiar that at the very end of the musical, Odysseus comes home, and the final song is about his reunion with Penelope, his wife. Something that may be a little bit less known is that Odysseus actually has a sister named Timony, as I have noted over here, along with the pronunciation of the name, because I did not know how to pronounce that. But yeah, there's that. Yeah, while making this fan song, I have come to the realization that Timony as a character barely exists entirely. She doesn't exist at all in Epic the Musical. There might have been some very subtle references to her character, especially in Mutiny, but yeah, overall, she has not been mentioned even a single time in Epic, and I have also learned that even in the original Odyssey, she has been mentioned like twice, maybe, and she doesn't even appear in the story after Odysseus makes it back home, so who knows where the fuck she is. So yeah, with that in mind, this song is going to be classified as a hit canon. For those of you who are not quite aware of what that means, it basically just means that this is a scenario that I came up with based on the setting that may or may not be canon. It is not explicitly confirmed, and neither is it explicitly denied. So, yes, the idea for this song is that, after Odysseus has his reunion with Penelope, It would be a matter of time before his remaining family members find out about his return. And so, Timony will find out about his return as well, eventually. And another fun fact about why I chose Timony is because in Epic the Musical, you will have noticed that Odysseus calls Eurylochus a brother a number of times, really. Because the thing is, Eurylochus is Odysseus' brother-in-law, because Eurylochus married Timony, who is Odysseus' sister. And so, after Odysseus returns home alone, I had this sort of idea that what if Timony also finds out about Odysseus' return, sees that he is alone, and then, she would also, naturally assume that he came back with his crew. Does that make sense? And so that's the story I'm going with. She finds out about Odysseus' return. She obviously rejoices in his return because it has been 20 years, and she will think that Eurylochus and the rest of Odysseus' crew is home, and she will end up asking about where Eurylochus is because she wants to meet him, that kind of stuff. And that is where the pain begins. And over here we have a list, a pretty extensive list of potential references I thought about using in the fan song, because motifs and references to other characters and their lyrics and their melodic elements and stuff like that is very, very, very. It is something that is done a lot in Epic itself by Jorge, and so I wanted to respect that, and so I tried my hardest to come up with a lot of different references I could use, and I'm not going to go through all of these one by one. You can read them on your own time because I didn't use all of them, so there's no point in me going through each and every single one individually. But generally, there are a few main things that I really wanted to reference. Number one, definitely Eurylochus, because Timony and Eurylochus are husband and wife, and so I wanted there to be a lot of references to Eurylochus, and then also considering the nature of the song and the title as well of One-Sided Reunion, because Odysseus had his reunion with Penelope, but Timony will not get her reunion with Eurylochus, which is why I went with this name. And so I also wanted to have references to Will You Fall in Love with Me Again, and the rest of it is just kinda here and there, whatever I felt like would fit. And you can also see these are the original lyrics. You could call it the original lyrics, or you could also call it sort of like a script, because it's a musical. It's basically acting in the form of a song. So it could be lyrics or script depending on how you wanna see it. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this is not the final version. I have made more changes in the final song itself. I just apparently forgot to edit this document. And no worries, if you wanted to look at the original lyrics, feel free to pause the video and all of that. And even if you're afraid of not being able to hear exactly what I'm singing in the fan song, don't worry. In the original upload of the song itself, I have gone ahead and put in the lyrics on screen, following the inspiration I got from the version of the animatics that I watched from Hold Up Now, I believe that's the name. I'm gonna put the video up on screen. Please check out the compilation of animatics as well. They did a wonderful, wonderful job with the captioning on screen. With all of the colors, with uh, highlighting certain words and putting the captions in different parts of the screen and all of that. They really put a lot of effort into that. So if you could also check out that version of the compilation, it would be awesome for them. Ta-da! Here we are in the project file itself, and as you can see, there are a number of things, and I will go through them one by one, kind of, as I said, explain the reasoning behind the lyrics, the instrument choices, and all that kind of stuff. First of all, I want to sort of give like a disclaimer of sorts. This entire vocal section is I recorded it myself, and so I just want to put it out there that I am not a singer, and so a lot of this will hurt your ears, especially for Timony, because I wanted to give her a higher voice, because she is a woman, and as you can hear my voice, I am basically in the range of a bass singer, and so yeah. I tried my best. I mean, I could have gone ahead and asked for a actual female singer. I definitely could have, but I don't have any singer friends, and since this was just a fan song that I wanted to make for fun, it didn't make sense for me to hire a singer either. So yeah, I just decided to do it all myself. And so yeah, it's not the best, but the idea is there. Let's see. The first things first, I suppose we can go through the instruments. There are just like 1, 2, 4 main things, I guess. Number one, the acoustic guitar. As you can see, I have highlighted it red, just like Odysseus's part over here, because that is his instrument. If you guys didn't know, in Epic the musical, every one of the sort of main characters, so to say, or like the prominent characters, I should say, they all have their own instruments. And for Odysseus, it is the guitar, both electric and acoustic. And because this is more of a vulnerable sort of situation, like he would be less monstrous, he would be more emotional and intimate in a sense. I decided to stick with the acoustic guitar. As for the Celesta, as you can see, I made it pink, just like Timony. I don't know why, pink just felt right for Timony, based on the very, very, very little that we actually know about the character. But the reason I chose a Celesta is because, at least when I was thinking about it, in a sense, Timony has a relationship to both Odysseus and Penelope. Being Odysseus' sister, she is somewhere in between now. Kind of. A little bit more on Odysseus' side. But anyway, I hope that kind of makes sense that Timony is in between where Penelope and Odysseus is, which is also the same place where Telemachus is. And Telemachus' instrument is, as Jorge calls it, an indie piano. I still don't know what that is. I believe there is a very high chance that it is the name of just a a plugin, an instrument plugin that Jorge just happened to use, because there is no such thing as an indie piano as far as I'm aware. Anyway, because Telemachus has an indie piano, I wanted to make Timony's instrument similar to Telemachus's rather than Odysseus, because Odysseus basically covers all of the variations of a guitar, and so there isn't really anything that I could use left for Timony. I mean, I could have gone outside of the Western space and took something from the Eastern side, maybe like a pipa from the traditional Chinese instruments, or I don't know, I could have maybe gone for a koto from the Japanese, or maybe a sitar from, I believe that's from the Indians. So there were choices, I just didn't have them on my PC in Ableton. And so, yeah, I decided to go with a Celesta because, for those of you who don't know, it actually looks very much like a piano. It's just that the insides are different. I believe it looks like a xylophone rather than having actual strings inside, which is why it sounds very. It has a like the characteristics of its sound. It makes it sound more like a bell than a piano, like that. So yeah, that's why I went with the Celesta. For the rest of it, I can kind of talk about it in the middle of going through this whole thing, because as you can see, I kind of separated that into sections. So the very beginning, we have a sound effect section, because as you saw in the document earlier, I wanted Timony to be running down the hall after hearing about Odysseus's return. She'll be running down the hall. I assume she would have really high class shoes, if that makes sense. So high heels made sense in my head, although I'm pretty sure back then they would wear more of sandals. But hopefully that still gets the point across. And then the door kind of bursts open over here. I forgot to unsolo. I'm stupid. And there you have it. She runs in, the door opens. I'm aware that it doesn't quite sound like a door bursting open, really. But this was kind of the best that I could find that is for free. So I just had to roll with it. So, but yeah. And then once they are in, and then Timony meets Odysseus, and then the music starts. Howdy, Timony. It is you. Yeah, I do not want to hear myself singing, so let me just mute that really quickly. Actually, let's go through the instrumental part. Why not? How do I put this? So for Timony's instrument, the Celesta, because she has such a familial relationship with Odysseus, I wanted her instrument to play something that is just like that references Odysseus as well, in a sense. So in order to do that, I actually had the Celesta play Odysseus's motif, his cunning motif, to be specific. Which is that's what I wanted to play. And so yeah, hopefully that made sense. And then I believe somewhere here I made it. No, this one. Yeah, I just kind of changed it up a little bit. So instead of da, 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 I just kind of played around generally with that sort of same area that the melodic line played. So yeah, I do not remember what I played. And yeah, for some of you might have noticed that the piano is also around. That is just my main instrument personally, and also it just felt like it wouldn't quite be out of place if Athena was also around. You know what I mean? So yeah, like Athena wouldn't be participating necessarily in this reunion. It's just like she kind of exists over there. Uh, because her piano also existed in Will You Fall in Love with Me Again, which for me, I took that as if like she was just there watching the reunion happen, and the sort of timeline for this song is immediately after the reunion between Odysseus and Penelope. So for me, at least in my head, it makes sense that Athena is still there. There was no particular reason for this sort of chord progression and chord choices. It sounded nice, really. But yeah, and then I need to get into the vocals as well, because the lyric choices also matter. Over here. It is you. You're finally again, I am terrible at singing. Standing right there, safe at home once more. So that whole part was from Will You Fall in Love with Me Again. I suddenly forgot how it went. You know, here's the song itself.
Is it you? Have my prayers been answered? Is it really you standing there? Or am I dreaming once more?
And then for the following part, I wanted Timothy to call Odysseus Odie, just like Eurylochus did. I originally thought that Eurylochus was the only person who called Odysseus Odie, but you know, there was also Apollo and Calypso, but Eurylochus was the first one, and also the only human to call him Odie, even considering how close Penelope was to him. And so, yeah, I wanted this to be a reference to Eurylochus as well. I have so much that I could ask, but my husband is back home again. Until I find him, I cannot rest. And this whole section is yet again another reference to Eurylochus. Like I said earlier, I wanted there to be a lot of references to Eurylochus. And for those of you who may or may not have caught it, this is a reference to Eurylochus's part in the beginning of Puppeteer.
Captain, I have something that I must confess. Something that I must get off my chest. Until it is said, I cannot rest.
And then after that reference is done, I wanted Timony to start asking where Eurylochus is. So, until find him, I cannot rest. Where is he? I am very, 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 very happy about this. Yeah, this was not an original idea, unfortunately, as much as I would have really liked it to be. I found this from another YouTube short. I do not remember her name, but she also had a similar idea of portraying Timony in Epic the Musical, and she referenced Hold Them Down, the where is he? And I love that idea so much because I wanted to inflict pain on the community and subsequently myself, but let's ignore that part. So yeah, I decided to also make use of that reference, and from there, the sort of scenario is that once Timony asks about Eurylochus, Odysseus starts having all sorts of flashbacks, and for me, it made sense for Odysseus to think about Thunderbringer specifically, because that is the exact point when Odysseus, explicitly sacrifices him, along with the rest of the crew. But like Eurylochus was kind of the big one that he sacrificed at that point, and so that is where the cello and the double bass come into play. Because if you guys remember, when Zeus forces the Troys down onto Odysseus, there was this one part, I believe it was after the Penelope part. There's the boom of the thunder, and then you had the strings going, oh, 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 oh. That part, I wanted to replicate that, to show that Odysseus is having PTSD flashbacks to that moment. So, the strings, the cello, and the double bass, they sort of swell in. And also, let me just mute the vocals for now. I pressed the wrong thing. But yeah. Initially, I just had the cello because, when you think of the low strings in an orchestra, generally the cello was the first one that comes to mind. But it just didn't feel like it had enough low end for one, and it didn't quite bring out the sort of seriousness and the tension that I wanted. So I paired it up with a double bass playing a third below the cello, and so it goes from just this into this. It sounded much fuller, if that makes sense. So yeah, that is the reference back to Thunderbringer. And to go back to the vocals now, we'll mute this part first because we'll get into this one by one. Generally, while Odysseus is having his sort of flashback moments and such, I wanted Timony's voice to also just pierce through his thoughts, and so this became a lot more conversational rather than very sing-songy in a typical like musical fashion. And also, so she goes from calling him Odie to his like quote unquote full name Odysseus. Like you know that kind of moment when somebody who usually calls you by a pet name, and then when things get serious, they start to naturally, use more of your proper name, if that makes sense. And because the part, because as you can see, Odysseus is not responding in this entire part over here. He is remaining completely silent, and that silence really bothers Timony. And so, yeah, I wanted to show that Timony is also getting increasingly anxious at the silence from Odysseus, and so she goes from calling him Odie to Odysseus, and then after this extended silence, she starts to break down. Say something. So I hope that makes sense. And now we have this part. I'm actually very happy about this. This whole part with Eurylochus and the crew, they were not part of the original idea. Originally, I just wanted only Timony's voice in this part. But then as I was making it just felt like this entire section was starting to get too empty, because it was just Timony popping in every now and again, and then it's only just let me mute the crew actually, so that you guys can hear what I mean. So without the crew, it's just this. Odysseus. Which could work, to be completely honest. It still could have worked as is, and maybe I could have filled it up with more grandiose sort of orchestral section over here to fill up that space. But then I'm not good enough to do that just yet. So what I ended up doing was, I felt like this was the perfect place to bring in Eurylochus and the dead crew. So first of all, let's focus on just the crew itself over here, these three. Obviously it's not just one person, so it didn't feel right to just use one vocal track to represent the crew. And so I did 3 separate takes, and I made them sing this. Let me push that up. Does a ripple become a tidal wave? When does a reason become the blame? When does a man become a monster? So yeah, I made them sing that famous part from Just a Man. Because again, this is Odysseus having that flashback back to Thunderbringer when he decides to sacrifice Eurylochus and the crew. And yeah, I just felt like this part fit for the crew to sing, because it's such an integral part of the musical as well. When does a man become a monster? And it just kind of injects itself in multiple parts of the musical. And then more importantly, for Eurylochus now, let's remove the crew. I wanted him to make a couple of references, and because he is dead, as you can see the panning over here, he kind of goes left and right just kind of because I imagine him to be kind of haunting Odysseus, going around the place, circling him, that kind of stuff, just to make it more traumatic for Odysseus. And it's also the same reason why I panned the crew to different areas of the soundscape. So anyway, for Eurylochus, let's go through part by part because each one of these 4 sections references a different thing. So for the first one, I'm right here, love. This is a reference to Odysseus calling out for Anticlea in the underworld. I'm right here, mom, can't you see? And it hurts me. But yeah, I just felt like that fit in this part because the thing between Odysseus and Anticlea, his mom, happens in the underworld, and Anticlea is dead while Odysseus, the living one, is calling out to her. But this time the sort of situation is reversed. Eurylochus is the dead one while Timony is alive, but Eurylochus is the one calling out to her. And obviously, Timony doesn't hear him. So this is just sort of like a... How do I put this? It's just Eurylochus calling out in vain for Timony, because of course, as you have heard in this part, Timony just keeps talking to Odysseus, despite Eurylochus calling out for her over here. Right here, love. Timony doesn't hear that. Yeah. The next part. This part, I don't think it is necessarily a melodic reference. It was just more of, yes, it is also in the underworld. It is Odysseus, the part where he keeps singing, all I hear are screams. And so I also wanted to incorporate that because, again, Eurylochus is dead. So I think I just wanted to have a lot of references to the Underworld saga in general, because he's dead. So yeah, hopefully that made sense. And then next up, suffer now. Okay, yeah, it took me a moment to remember, but this part, it unfortunately doesn't sound too similar. I tried my very best, but this is supposed to be a reference to Luck Runs Out, which is famously a Eurylochus focused song. This is the part where, how much longer till your luck runs out? But of course, I couldn't sing it in that same tempo because this is a completely different tempo, different BPM. So I tried my best. I'm not sure how clearly that came through. But yeah, that's what the reference is. And the last part. Yes. Again, as I said, Eurylochus is not alive over here. He is haunting Odysseus. So if you guys could hear in your headphones and such, I made his voice. You can also see in the panning over here. So I made it so that he traveled from left to right, just circling around Odysseus. And there was no price he won't pay. This is a reference to Scylla.
There is no price we won't pay.
Forgive me.
Because Odysseus really just kind of prove that sort of statement, right? That there really wasn't a price that he won't pay to get back home. And in a sense, this is also a reference to what he sang in Just a Man as well. I can't, there's too much to remember off the top of my head, but basically he says that deep down he would give up the world to see his son and wife. I believe those are the lyrics. And yeah, again, it just sort of reinforces this statement. There really wasn't a price that he wouldn't pay to get back home. And so now that all of that is done, Tiffany finally sort of loses her patience and like, because this whole part from the first where is he, and this entire part was her going from like being kind of hopeful, if that makes sense, because Odysseus is back. Of course, then naturally you would think that at least some of the crew is back, and Eurylochus being his right hand man, naturally she would think that he's back home. So she goes from being hopeful here, and then because of the extended silence, she kind of goes through some stages of grief, if that makes sense. Right? She finds out that the silence is concerning, that sort of anxiety sort of rises higher and higher due to the strange lack of a response from Odysseus, and so she finally cracks in this part, which I have labeled the review. So let's go ahead and listen to that.
Where is he? Where is the man I've been waiting for?
Where is he? Where is he? I'm not great at doing a high voice, but I am quite proud of that. But yes, I wanted yet another reference to Where Is He, the Hold Him Down song. Because in Hold 'Em Down, these suitors are saying like, where is the man who is able to string this bow? Where is the next king? Where is he? And I wanted that similar sort of emotion would be the word, I suppose. That in the same way that the suitors are anxious and desperate to find that one person to become the next king, I wanted Timony to have that same sort of desperation and desire, in a sense, to really find out and get an answer from Odysseus. Where is my husband? So hopefully that makes sense. Oh yes, I nearly forgot about this. To go back to the instruments for a little bit, notice how there is a viola and violin over here. So, in the previous section, I have been yapping about, how Odysseus is getting a flashback to Thunderbringer, and this section is sort of like an extension of that. As you can see, the cello and the double bass are also continuing from the previous part, playing the same thing. It's just that instead of being swells like instead of it being like a swell, they just kind of flow into one another continuously. And if you guys remember, in Thunderbringer, there is also the part where Penelope, like, I believe it is like Odysseus starts hallucinating Penelope, which is why I brought in her viola. But that is not all. I also wanted to bring in a violin. The reason for that is because in the same saga, in Suffering, yes, the sirens were also impersonating Penelope. And as we know, Penelope's instrument is the viola, not the violin. And so I wanted to use the quote unquote wrong instrument for the sirens who were impersonating Penelope. And then also, as you can see, I layered the violin as well. Because if you can remember, whenever it was in different beasts, whenever they were in the actual siren mode, they have a sort of harmonized voice, if that makes sense. Spare us, oh, spare us, please. So I wanted to imitate that with the violin, because I just felt like they also played a part in the whole Thunder Saga. Really, they were a big part of it. Actually, they took up 2 whole songs, and so yeah, I wanted to also include them. And notice the melody that I made the violin play. Yeah, you may or may not recognize that, but I made the violins play Suffering from You, which is what the Sirenelope sings to Odysseus. I can take the suffering from you. Let me take the suffering from you. And yeah, this is a reference to that. Although I never mentioned this anywhere, really. It's not even in the lyrics. But instead of suffering from you, in my head, I actually mentally changed the lyrics to become suffering for you. Because at this point, the crew, the sirens, basically everyone else that Odysseus has harmed, they are not looking to take any suffering from him anymore, if that makes sense. And I actually had a comment on Reddit that Eurylochus could have been the one to sing this part. I don't know, it just didn't feel right for Eurylochus to be the one doing the singing for this, and so I gave it to the violin, which again, for me, I wanted it to be the representation of the sirens, which is why I had the violins play chords instead of a singular melodic line, to sort of imitate the way their voices sound when they sang together. So yeah, that's that. And we are almost done. So yeah, I think that's about it for the instrument parts. Let's listen to the sort of conversation between Timony and Odysseus. Oh, whoops. Whoops, I completely forgot about that. Whoops. What the fuck is wrong with me? No, what is going on? Genuinely. Why is there nothing? Hold up. Okay, the plugin I was using just didn't want to work. But yeah, I got it to work now. Someone had to die that day.
I made it his final day so I could get home.
Yeah. So, again, this is still continuing on from the reference to Thunderbringer.
Someone had to die that day, and I made it his final day so I could get home.
Yes, this is a reference to what Zeus sings to Odysseus. Someone's gotta die today, and you have got the final say. And then also this part. So I could get home. This is what Odysseus sings to Eurylochus and his crew, begging them to not kill the holy cows. We can get home. And then for Timony, once she realizes what Odysseus is saying, I made her, so naturally she would scream no, and like sort of break down in grief. So what I made her sing was, that is a reference to keep your friends close. After Odysseus finds out that the windbag was open, and it has also been sometimes called the desperation motif. So yeah, it just felt like a great place to use that. And as you might have noticed, down here, all of the instruments cut off when she screams no. And like at the end of Odysseus' sort of confession, you know what I mean? Oh, and also something I forgot to mention is that since Odysseus' guitar came in, does that sound familiar? Because it is Odysseus' cunning motif once again. My piano is a little bit off tune now for some reason, but anyway, yes. And then, as you might have realized, it's not exactly stable, if that makes sense. It's not like da 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 dun 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 dun, but rather da 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 dun 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 da da da. I made it more sort of staggered, if that makes sense. I wanted the guitar to sort of portray this kind of conflict, internal conflict within Odysseus, between trying to lie and also telling the truth and intentionally hurting Timony, if that makes sense. So I wanted there to be a sort of clash between kind of two sides of Odysseus. In the beginning, he was a lot more cunning, but towards the end, he is very monstrous. And you know, who gives a fuck anymore about anything? And yeah, it's quite subtle. I don't know if that necessarily came true, but that was the idea over here. And then, yeah, like I said, all of the other instruments cut off over here once the review was done. And I left it with just the acoustic guitar and Timony's Celesta. And the reasoning for that is because of Will You Fall in Love with Me Again? After the whole the big kissing moment and the Just a Man reference is done. For those of you who have noticed, all of the instruments also get cut except the acoustic guitar and Penelope's viola. I was doing the same thing over here. And yeah, hopefully that sounded familiar because it is the waiting motif that I am a personal huge fan of. Waiting, waiting. So yeah, I just wanted to change the lyrics up to Timony sort of declaring that, you know, I was waiting for my husband. How could you do this to him and to me? And for Odysseus, when Timony says for him, I wanted to layer Odysseus on top, saying, "Forgive me." So yeah, I thought that was a really nice sort of layering over there of the lyrics. And here we have the end.
I'm just a
Yeah! So, instead of I'm just a man at the end of Just a Man, yeah, Timony, at least in this scenario that I came up with, she basically ends up turning hostile against Odysseus. Maybe not in the sense of like I'm gonna kill you kind of situation, just more like I hate you. I think that would be a more appropriate sort of emotion that I was trying to portray. And so she interrupts Odysseus trying to say that he's just a man and ends up calling him just a monster. And yeah, I also wanted the whole crew to come in, and also Eurylochus to come in and declare him a monster because they were also sacrificed by Odysseus. And yeah, again, like I said, they wouldn't necessarily have a positive attitude towards Odysseus anymore. Even though, you know, you can argue that they were the one who fucked up, but it's given their characters. You know, maybe Eurylochus wouldn't be calling him a monster even after that, because there are also scenarios where I imagine him to resign to his fate when Odysseus chose to sacrifice him, but then it's also not exactly unnatural to feel like he would grow animosity towards this year's as well. So yeah, again, I just wanted all of them to sort of jump in and interrupt this year's, all calling him just a monster. I am actually happy about that ending, and overall I am very, very, very proud of this fan song as well. Obviously a lot of things could be better. The first half could have sounded happier, but I am just not all that great at sounding happy in general. And then, of course, the vocals are a big reason why this doesn't sound nearly as good as it could. But again, this is just a for fun kind of project. And so, yeah, I just have to make do with me. But if anybody wants to be any of the voices in this song, I would be more than happy to try and include you guys and, work on a more polished final song and upload that again. But otherwise, yeah, that's kind of it. I just really, really wanted to yap about my creation. And so I hope that all of you enjoyed the song and also felt as much pain as I did making it. But yeah, that is it from me today. I have no idea what video to make next. Now that the sort of obsession with Epic is over, we still have to wait a long time for Ilium. So until then, I have no idea what I'm gonna do just yet. Yeah, I just have to find that sort of energy and motivation to do things. But for now, there's no sort of set date or even a plan of what to do next. So I will just see you guys whenever I see you again. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, as usual, stay safe, stay comfy, and I will see you guys again very soon. Until the next video, bye bye. Wee.